Hey guys, and welcome back to the course. In this video we'll add a score system to our game so that you can keep track of how many enemies you have killed with your teammates. The process to achieve this is going to be pretty similar to the way that we made our health system work, since we just need to add 1 to our score each time we kill an enemy and then synchronize that variable and the text over the network. So if you want to go ahead and pause the video here and attempt to do this on your own, that would be awesome. But if you don't feel ready yet, that's completely fine, just follow along and you'll soon get the grasp of it. So here inside of Unity, I'll select my health text game object and I'll duplicate it by pressing Ctrl D or Command D if you're on the Mac. Then let's rename this new object to score. We'll then click on this button, and with the Shift and Alt buttons pressed down, we'll go ahead and click on this top right button to set the position as well as the pivot to the top right corner of our screen. We'll also need to go ahead and set the paragraph alignment to the right. And then I'll set the text value to 0 to start off. Alright, so we also went ahead and quickly added some little images next to the text so that the player can easily identify that the left text is for the health, whereas the right text is for the score. UI can easily become very confusing, especially if you have lots of it all around your game. So remember to always keep it to the bare minimum and make it very clear what each element represents. Next off, let's create a new empty game object that I'll rename to score. Then we can go ahead and create a new C# script that I'll also call score. Once it's been created, I'll drag and drop it onto my newly created game object. I'll also add to this object a photon view component, since we're going to be calling a RPC function from our score script. And if you remember from the health video, we need the photon view component to call RPCs. In here, I'll start off by importing the photon.pan namespace, as well as the Unity engine.ui namespace. Then I will create, of course, a int variable called score that will be set to 0 by default. After that, we need a photon view variable called view. Then inside of the start function, we'll set the view variable to be equal to the photon view component that is attached to our objects. We'll also need a public text variable called score display. With that all done, we'll make a public void function called addScore. This is the function that we'll call from our enemy scripts. We don't want to do anything in this function apart from call our RPC. So let's make that right now. So I'll create underneath it a void function called addScoreRPC. Then to turn this function into a RPC, which will enable us to synchronize over the network everything that's inside of it, I'll just add inside of square brackets above it pan RPC. Now inside this function, we'll simply increment by 1 our score variable, and then we'll update our score display text to show that change. But don't forget to convert the score variable into a string, or else you'll get a nasty error message. So now I'll just go back to my public addScore function, and I'll type view.rpc. Then inside of quotation marks, I'll type the name of my RPC function that I want to call. So that would be in my case addScoreRPC. Then I'll set the RPC target to all, since I want all players to see the change. Okay, so to quickly recap, when our enemy will collide with our golden ray, he'll call this public addScore function, which doesn't do anything apart call our special RPC function that synchronizes everything inside of it. In here, we're just adding 1 to our score variable, and then we're simply updating our text. Alright, so let's now open up our enemy script. I'll start off by creating a score variable that I'll call score. Then inside of the start function, I'll set score to be equal to find object of type score. This will search our Unity scene for a score script and store it inside of my variable. Now let's come down to our onTriggerEnter to the function. So at the moment, if our enemy touches the golden ray, we are simply destroying the enemy over the network. So before the line where we are destroying him, we'll call our score.addScore function, and that's it. However, if you ever think about this code, there is one major problem, which is that at the moment, if an enemy touches our golden ray, the score will get incremented by 2, and we're also trying to destroy the enemy twice, once for each instance of this enemy on our different game sessions. But we only want to destroy him once, since we're using the photon network.destroy function, and so the other player will also see that the enemy gets destroyed when using this special destroy function from Photon. So to make sure that all this code only gets called once, we will wrap this entire if statement inside of another if statement that checks if photon network.isMasterClient. In other words, if we are the player that created this room. Okay, so to quickly recap, whenever an enemy collides with another game object, we are first checking if we are the master client. If that's the case, then we could go ahead and check if what we hit was the golden ray. If it was, then we are calling our addScore function and we are destroying the enemy over the network. Alright, let's now save our script and go back to Unity. Let's not forget to drag and drop our score text onto our score display slot. And then with that done, let's hit Ctrl B or Command B if you're on the Mac to build our game. Okay, so now each time that we are destroying our enemies with our golden ray, our score variable is beautifully getting incremented by 1 each time. Perfect. You should start to notice that making simple multiplayer games like this is really not that hard. The biggest challenge is to wrap your head around what do you need to synchronize and what you don't need to, if you need to only run some code if you're on the local player or the master client and so on. But with experience, you'll see that even that is not too much of a challenge. Anyways, that marks the end of this video. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!